Let me know below the last time that you actually used Stack Overflow. I can tell you now that it's been a long time since I've used it. In fact, the only time I think I've used Stack Overflow is when I've been like on a work call and we've been debugging something, and I was too embarrassed to probably go straight to an LLM. So I pretend, I was just using the old method of going to Stack Overflow whilst everyone was watching me. So I have used it in the last year. But yeah, anyway, so Stack Overflow is almost dead. So the peak of Stack Overflow was 2014 to 2017, as we can see. Then where COVID hits, I mean, it's already declining though, sort of 2016, 2017. And then we get a big peak in COVID, which is probably a bunch of people who are now at home who are wanting to change career or something and are wanting to pick up coding and are running into their bugs. What's interesting about this actually is how much it's already declining before ChatGPT launches. I did not realize this. And then as ChatGPT launched, it basically fell off a cliff, which is a real shame, actually. I still think, although we'll get into that. I mean, a lot of people on Stack Overflow are fairly obnoxious. We all know that if you've grown up with that. It's not a kind place to ask a question if a question's been asked before. Let's just say that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that actually I didn't. It's a bit of a, what I was going to say though is a bit of a shame though, because they do the annual Stack Overflow survey, and I always thought that was really good. I don't know if that data is related on their platform, or if it's just like a separate piece of research they do, but I hope they continue to do that because it's definitely one of the best things they do. And actually, before we get into the comments, Stack Overflow, I think they've got some new features on there. They got any LLM related features? You've got Overflow AI. See, they do have a thing. I've not used this. Anyway, so let's see what the comments say. This is actually a blog post, but we're not going to read the blog post because I didn't realize it was a blog post and that wasn't on my agenda. So Stack Overflow is so unwelcoming for beginners. True. I'm very experienced dev, but beginning some technical errors. I won't post any questions on Stack Overflow because they are brutal to beginners. I once responded to someone on... Yeah, they're just right. It's just a negative, toxic place. I once helped someone solve a problem on Stack Overflow, and another person on Stack Overflow got pretty mad at me because it wasn't the most optimal solution. It was a solution. So that was my experience, and I think that was the last time I actually wrote anything. They defeated me. I've been at it since 2002 and seen it all. My view has always been those who know little, belittle others with the little they know. That's a very good statement. Never belittle anyone. If anyone asks for help, be kind, help them out. Unless you never want to help anyone, that's up to you, I suppose. So at least ChatGPT doesn't tell me to F off when I ask for help coding something. True. ChatGPT is the opposite. It's like constantly like just making you feel good about yourself. Probably making you think you're smarter than you actually are. It's like a sycophant we've had recently. I think they have toned it down a bit. I thought it was really bad a few weeks ago. I made a video about it. You can go check that out. By the way, please leave a like and subscribe. But yeah, I think they fixed it a bit. It's not as sycophantic, but it still has a little bit of something in there to make you feel good about yourself, which, to be honest, I don't hate, Maybe ChatGPT finished the decline, but it started way before that. Yeah, this is what we noticed a moment ago. Really interesting. It's already... I mean, you could argue that here was 2014, and ever since then, the user base has gone down. I wonder why that is. Why is it just steadily declining here? Oh, monthly? Hang on, actually, though. Monthly questions asked on Stack Overflow. I said before that quite often people... It sort of makes sense, actually, when you think about it. At some point, a lot of questions have been asked, so you could expect over time the number of questions to be asked to reduce, I suppose, unless there's constantly new technology. But as long as people are using the same languages, Java, Python and stuff, most problems will have been run into by other people. So yeah, that's just monthly questions asked, right? This isn't usage stats. Couldn't happen to a better site. Stack Overflow is a fine site. It's just the people, like always, it's the people that are a problem. People are great and people are horrible. They're always the best and the worst thing about everything. This comment has already been mentioned. Topic closed. Use the search function. That's pretty much sums up Stack Overflow. It never left us. It's been immortalized in the training data of LLMs. I mean, this is without a doubt true. Of course, they have control over how this LLM talks to you. But yeah, which is why I always Yeah, I feel like there was a moment a month ago or so where I feel like there was a lot of the LLMs. I felt like it was talking in a very Reddity way. Which I thought was a bit cringe. You know what I mean when I say like a Reddity way. It's not everywhere on Reddit, but it's certain people. Posted a few times on Stack Overflow, not much. Either I got hit with very snarky comments like everyone is saying here, I got an answer which was utterly useless. To make sure I don't get the hate for not reading the documentation and informing myself, explain what I did, why I did it, and link to examples in the documentation that it's not working. That's always the best thing to do. People want to say, what have you tried already, right? Rather than just asking it. The worst, people that just ask a question do deserve a little bit, not necessarily hate, but if it's just a question and nothing, no further explaining, nothing like what you did or what you think, it's just like anything that looks like entirely lazy, does probably deserve to be removed to some degree. I don't know. Maybe that's one for philosophers. So the answer, a link to the documentation with some BS generic answer, that's how you solve it. And they copied exactly the example from the documentation and changed the name of variables. Yeah. So this is probably, and their profile had some high rank or high amounts of points. I don't know. So they're probably just sat on there waiting for things to answer, which is a bit sad, you know, especially if you're just doing that to attack people. I still use Stack Overflow sometimes, but not to ask for help in case of my problems, just because I found relevant questions via Google. Yeah, I've noticed that Stack Overflow just barely comes up anymore, even. Although I say that, I think my first port of call usually now is an LLM over Google, generally speaking. It's just easier, it's more tailored. I can ask it follow-up questions. I can ask it to give me a specific example. I can ask it to give me a simple example and then a complex example. So, which is a good thing for a platform that was elitist and inimical to beginners. Great word. Now the experts can have their peace without any disturbances. I feel like this joke is going to be all over the place. Marked as duplicate. Okay, here you go. I assume Quora too. I've never really used Quora much. Not a fan. According to this, the decline started before ChatGPT launched. That's just the number of questions asked. I'm sure there is a correlation, of course, between questions asked and usage, but it might not be as strong as, because we haven't got the data, so it might not be strong. This is new questions asked, right? Questions asked. Exactly. They peaked at 2014. They entered stagnation for a period of 3 years and then declined much before ChatGPT. Funny that the chart resembles the classic stock life cycle, stage 2, stage 3, and now stage 4. Yep, notice that in the chart as well. Even the fans, and you complained about it, how it was stagnating by the 2016, 2018. Lots of questions has already been answered. Yeah, and it's almost like a design flaw of the platform, if you think about it. If you have to look at the incentives. If people get attacked for asking questions which already have been asked, then people won't ask those questions, which means unless there's a continuous stream of new technologies, which I know there kind of is, but they would also have to be adopted, you're not going to get more and more questions. You're going to get less and less questions. It seems like a design flaw, assuming you care about the metric of questions asked. But the prior art was 10 years old and implementation specific. Yeah, so what the prior part, well, I think what they're saying here is that although the question had already been answered, it might be asked, it was asked 10 years ago, and it's the language itself. We all know how much language has changed every single year, let alone 10 years ago. You know, 10 years, you're talking like Python 2 versus Python 3. I might be wrong there. Python 3's probably been out for a long time. Which okay, maybe wrong for subreddit to say, but I'm kind of an LLM hater. That's fine. The business details of the current trend more than the tech. But as an LLM hater, I readily admit generalized solution explained and tweaked for use case X is exactly the workflow gap that a good LLM can fill. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was saying. So they're saying although they hate LLMs, or they're an LLM hate, self-professed LLM hater, they're saying the fact that you can get a nice generalized solution of for specific use cases nice, and that's how I use it really. I kind of like to I've always learned from examples, and then I can work it out from there. So give me an example, and then I'll work out the rest. So I love LLMs for that, to be honest. Maybe they shouldn't have been elitist jerks. That's just always the case. And I think the internet has always been I think it's actually changed over time. I think you used to have a lot more elitist jerks than you do now, thankfully. Especially programmers. I feel like there was a thing with the early sort of programmers that, you know, they kind of match that sort of stereotype of just being a bit obnoxious, probably. Maybe that's based on nothing. I never tried to learn programming, even though it interested me because I saw all the snarky commentary on there. That's crazy. So someone literally didn't become a programmer because of the people on Stack Overflow. SO is so toxic. ChatGPT never answers my questions with Google. Wasn't there a Claude. Wasn't there a moment a few weeks ago where Claude did something like that a few months ago? I don't think it said to Google it, but it was like, do it yourself or something. It was pretty funny. So Stack Overflow has long had a reputation for being unwelcoming and in many areas outright toxic, whether you're a beginner asking a genuine question or an experienced developer trying to clarify an edge case. Yeah, I think so often people don't actually read what it is you said. I hate that. I don't even participate with Reddit anymore. I don't comment, to be honest. I certainly don't post. I can't remember the last time I commented because there are so many toxic people online still. In fact, I take back what I said earlier where there's less toxic people online now. I'll completely take that back because the reason I don't participate with Reddit anymore is because people are so toxic and honestly bothers me, to be honest. And I notice as well, if I've ever gone and asked a question in a subreddit before, I will give as much detail as possible, and you can just tell that people have not actually read what you've written. So it's like you may as well have not written that. They will just like read your actual question without the 2 paragraphs of context and respond to it. And it's like, you're not answering anything. Anyway, the obsession with duplicate questions, the nitpicking over phrasing or formatting, and the race to downvote rather than help, it all creates a hostile environment. True. It's difficult. How do you fix the problem of duplicate questions? You would agree that it does feel redundant to have too many of the same duplicate questions. But also, yeah, I think things change over time. What you really want to do is sort... Yeah, I don't know. There'll definitely be a solution now to that, I think, with LLMs being able to more smartly sort of categorize things together. So nobody's really mourning the idea that Stack Overflow, I guess it doesn't have to be an LLM. Nobody really mourning the idea of Stack Overflow might be declining or even dead. If anything, people are exploring better, more supportive alternatives. Discord communities, GitHub discussions. I feel like GitHub discussions are the highest quality discussions. I've never been a Discord person, to be honest. I'm not in any Discord communities. The truth is, platforms thrive when they evolve with their community. True. So, letting Stack Overflow die is kind of like killing the cows because we have milk now. LLMs are just a better way to search Stack Overflow. The source of the info is Stack Overflow, and it's not just Stack Overflow, but I imagine it's a major contributor, certainly, to probably has been a massive, massive aid for the coding aspect of LLMs and the language around coding. But you also have the actual documentation for code and other places, I guess, too. And it's toxic over moderation. While annoying, is the reason it has so much detailed information with little duplication, making it easy to find answers to super specific questions. Without it, I'm afraid LLMs will hit a knowledge wall for coding. I think this is probably a fair point. While it's true that there's a reason for it being strict, even though that's part of what it's killing it, newbies aren't welcome. And to be honest, I do actually sympathize with this whole idea of duplicates because I once was working on a platform, again, to actually do with questions. And I'll be honest, I sort of made the same design choice to only have, at least from a database-based perspective, to only store each question once if it was identical. I guess it's a bit different because we're talking about instances of questions here versus the actual storing of the question itself. So the coding equivalent of Git good, yeah, it won't be missed, but it will live on particles of data and LLM. Looks like it was a downside spiral before LLMs. It was rubbish and unhelpful anyway. I don't think it was rubbish or unhelpful, to be honest. It was unhelpful probably if you were the person asking the questions, but if you're just someone browsing, if you've just come across an error message in your code base, Stack Overflow was still the best way to actually find a solution to that problem. Without a doubt, nothing else came close. No one wanted to use Stack Overflow. We just had no other options. True. Question. I don't care about Stack Overflow. I didn't think it was that. It was still the best tool we had, okay? This is not Stack Overflow hate. Maybe a little. As you can tell by my username, I was very happy about this. I hate Stack Overflow. Fair enough. Closed. Question has been asked. I made a post to reverse engineering asking about server responses and how a server application is using cryptographic salts, or Stack Overflow seems so unwelcoming. It's a site full of the most entitled, pretentious, elitist developers I have ever seen. Maybe not entitled, but pretentious and elitist, yes. Good thing it's dead. It's very sad. A generation of coders used it every day to find answers to their problems. You can't search Discord chats, can you not? Surely there's an extension for that. I don't know. Yeah, but people aren't searching for solutions on Discord either. Yeah, I guess if Discord realized that was a functionality that people wanted, then they could probably implement that, no problem. So O3, Claude, or Gemini will answer any questions better than Stack Overflow ever could. I don't disagree with that. I think that's just a fact. Anyone who disagrees. And you get an instant response. You don't have to wait. You don't have to extract the information from a Stack Overflow thread that is just slightly different to what you're working on and then try and apply it to that, which could still waste some time. Here, you can actually directly get an answer instantaneously about the exact problem you have. I'm not saying LLMs are perfect, they're not, but you get so much more done. And it can actually create stuff, like, right? It's not just, yeah. Anyway, let's continue. It's because most questions were already asked, not because people lost interest. You just Google answer instead of asking. Yeah. I think they're referring to the graph. I think they're referring to the fact that what you're seeing on the graph is questions asked, which is reducing. I always see that, yeah, blah, 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 Stack Overflow is toxic. My experience has been very different. I've been beginning questions before. The only kind of feedback I get is this type asked to be more explicit with the question I'm trying to ask. Maybe they were in the unique position of asking questions which were somewhat unique. Could be it. And to be honest, I still want to say that Stack Overflow was a great tool, and a lot of lazy people did ask questions with like if you ever sat on Stack Overflow, I sometimes did it in the past, and you were just looking at new questions come in. A lot of them were garbage questions, and a lot of them were ignored. A lot of them were very lazy questions, and a lot of them had almost no information of what they tried. And I don't really think you can expect people to necessarily answer those questions, because it's like, if you're not willing to put in any effort, why should anyone put in any effort? But I think if someone's put in the effort just because it's already had a solution, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. If someone's put in the effort in the question, then you should respond. Can someone explain the dip after COVID-19 start? I imagine there was a spike of new questions, basically, from people who started to learn programming, and then they realized how toxic Stack Overflow was, and then they all promptly stopped coding. A lot of IT companies during that time. Whatever you think of Stack Overflow, this is concerning going forward, in my opinion. ChatGPT got the train on all the Stack Overflow responses, which are no longer being generated at a good rate. You also posted this in local llama, so I'm marking your post as duplicate, lol. I imagine Google search should face the same issue, no. Yeah, it's very different. And I've started using Google again. I sort of went through a phase where I stopped using Google and I was just using ChatGPT. Now I'm using Google again. I think they're better. There was a whole meme for ages where, Google's AI answer, it was terrible. I think people still think it's terrible, but it's actually good now. And it has been good for a while. It's not awful. You still should probably take it with a grain of salt, but I've noticed at least for 6 months it's been good, I think. But before that, it was terrible. But they're still downvoting or even removing real questions when you are desperate for help. Probably true. But yeah. I miss the days when I had a bug. I have 10 tabs open with Google search. You can still do that. Does it have to be dead, or maybe it can be for topics? As soon as everything is done by an LLM, no one asks online, from where's the new data? This is definitely an interesting point. I guess documentation, but it won't be a lot of examples there. This is an interesting question. I wonder how they can extrapolate. Yeah. If someone created a brand new coding language with some documentation, and then we fed it into an LLM like ChatGPT, I wonder how well it could do without there having been the context of other questions. And I guess it can also get things working from Git repositories also. But yeah, certainly it would need lots and lots and lots of examples. That's how these things work. They're not intelligent in the way that some people seem to think they are. It is just data. So yeah, certainly an interest. What happens when everyone... Yeah, it's an interesting point. Stack Overflow's goal, that mean there won't be new languages. Stack Overflow's goal is said to be a kind of catalogue over all questions people can have and their answers. In my personal opinion, they needed some way to show that clearly and politely instead of the current style, which makes many upset. If Stack Overflow was as polite as, for example, ChatGPT, maybe the site would have lived longer. Yeah, but it's people. You can't control people. It's like a culture thing. You can't how do you incentivize people being nice? Reddit does it debatably by banning people, even if they're temp bans. Having rules of... I guess you have rules of... Yeah, they could have had rules of engagement, but then you have to have moderators sort of looking at each answer and making sure that people aren't being obnoxious. You can't force people to be nice. You could only try and get rid of people who are not nice. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving site. ChatGPT has been way more helpful, and as a bonus, it hasn't tried to insult me. It is nice to see people resorted to Stack Overflow during COVID and realize it was... Let's see. Is there anything interesting? Honestly, Stack Overflow is time to dead it all, blah, blah, blah. Let it die. People will understand the value when it's gone. Hopefully they will be stuck in their AI rot, being enslaved to AI. Seems a bit extreme. They will keep wandering for a trustable human expert, finding no one in sight. Interesting to see that the chart over Reddit this chart over Reddit subs. Stack Over community is not toxic. Toxic people just stand out a bit more than regular helping folks. Yeah, there might be a bit of bias there. I forgot the word for it there. There have been hundreds of problems that still can't get fixed by AI, and needed Stack Overflow to find a solution. The reason is most programmers don't understand how code works and make bad code. Probably true. The same level of code that you probably get by using AI to do it. The one thing that still annoys me about LLMs, and to be honest, I've not been coding with LLMs a lot lately. I don't really need it for my work's a bit niche currently, so I don't use it for that. But yeah, I find with LLMs they don't always give you you kind of have to specifically ask for better code. You can you could ask it to solve a problem. It'll give you some code, and you're like, can you make it better? And then can you make it better again? And can you make it better again? Or can you make it secure? Or can you make it this? And then it will do it. But it's like, if you're not explicit in your language, it won't necessarily give you the best code. And I think most people wouldn't do that. Most people just have a problem and they want it solved. So yeah, this will eventually be a problem ChatGPT learns from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow would boom if they weren't so damn mean. I mean, Stack Overflow did boom. Stack Overflow was the best tool for the longest time. I think it's perfectly natural for just something a bit more convenient to come along. I literally came here because I've wasted countless hours going back and forth with ChatGPT trying to get my LLMs to work. And most of the time it seems like it compounds its own mistakes and makes things progressively worse until everything totally breaks. Yeah, if you just keep copying and pasting more and more code into it, I think it is pretty bad. And it does break. And then it doesn't understand why it's breaking. So, and I'm very skeptical. I've not used Gemini that much, but didn't Gemini say they've got like a massive context? So context being like how much you can put into your query, I think, or how much it can essentially process and remember and still function correctly. And a lot of these LLMs are now claiming to have this massive context, but I find they're still not necessarily good when you make the context too big, despite having the capability, this technically. I might be wrong. I probably need to play around with it a bit more. Should we keep reading? So I just want to run an LLM locally. I'm not an expert in whatever the F is running under the hood. Fair enough, neither am I. Why does this stuff have to be so difficult? It's actually quite easy if you run I got a model from Hugging Face, and that was quite easy to set up. I almost just smashed my brand new 4K rig. That sounds like someone has anger issues. Put together because I'm so annoyed at ChatGPT for not being able to resolve a simple issue instead of just making everything worse. I'm hoping I can find sane, reasonable, and easy fixes to stupid problems like why is Llama 2 want 13-bit base model? I just trained on my 2K sample dataset I personally curated, insisting on writing at the end of every response, and why won't it output verbose responses? Anyway. Good, that site was horrible. Playing people to learn, got humiliated by snarky developers. Anyway, I think a lot of it is the same stuff. So we should probably just stop there. Yeah, let's leave it there. Please leave a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And thank you for watching, and take care.